You did everything right. You went to school, maybe even college. You got a decent job with benefits. You show up on time, work hard, maybe even got a few promotions over the years. Your parents would be proud. Your grandparents would call you successful. But here's the thing nobody wants to talk about. You're still broke. Not because you're bad with money, not because you're lazy, but because the entire game changed, and nobody bothered to tell you. Let me paint you a picture. It's 1985. Your dad gets a job at a decent company making $40,000 a year. He buys a house for $90,000. That house costs him about 2.25 times his annual salary. Fast forward to today. You make $60,000 a year. Sounds like more money, right? Except that same house in that same neighborhood now costs $420,000. That's 7 times your annual salary. Your dad needed 2.25 years of income to buy a house. You need 7. But somehow, people still ask why your generation isn't buying homes. The math doesn't math anymore. And it's not just housing. Let's talk about what happened to your paycheck over the last 40 years. In 1979, the average American worker produced about $25 worth of value per hour when you adjust for inflation. Today, that same worker produces about $37 of value per hour. Productivity went up 48%. Guess how much wages went up? About 12%. You're working harder, producing more, creating more value for your company than your parents ever did. But you're taking home a smaller slice of the pie you baked. Here's where it gets really interesting. While your wages barely moved, corporate profits exploded. Executive compensation went through the roof. In 1965, the average CEO made about 20 times what their average worker made. Today, it's about 350 times. The money is there. It's being created. You're helping create it. It's just not ending up in your bank account. But let's get back to your paycheck because there's more going on here than just stagnant wages. Let's say you're making that $60,000 a year. Sounds decent, right? Middle class. Comfortable. Let's break down where that money actually goes. Federal income tax takes about 13%. State tax, depending on where you live, maybe another 5%. Social Security and Medicare, another 7.5%. So before you even see your money, roughly a quarter of it is gone. You're down to $45,000. Now come the real bills. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized American city is about $1,500 a month. That's $18,000 a year. You're down to $27,000. Health insurance through your employer, even with them paying most of it, costs you about $200 a month in premiums. That's another $2,400. Down to $24,600. Car payment, insurance, gas, and maintenance, let's say another $6,000 a year. Now you're at $18,600, and you haven't bought groceries yet. You haven't paid your phone bill. You haven't paid for internet. You haven't gone to the doctor and hit your deductible. You haven't bought clothes or gotten a haircut or gone out to dinner once. This is the reality of a good job in America today. You're making more nominal dollars than your parents made, but you're ending up with less actual buying power. And here's the part that really stings. Your parents were told that if they worked hard and stayed loyal to a company, they'd get a pension. They'd retire comfortably. You don't get a pension. You get a 401k, which sounds great until you realize it's just a tax-deferred savings account that depends entirely on you contributing money. You don't have, and the stock market not crashing right when you need to retire. The average American has about $65,000 saved for retirement. Sounds okay until you realize that at a 4% withdrawal rate, that gives you $2,600 a year to live on. Add in Social Security, which for the average person is about $18,000 a year, and you're looking at about $21,000 a year in retirement. That's below the poverty line. This is what a lifetime of good jobs gets you. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about inflation because the government's official inflation numbers are, let's just say, creative. They tell you inflation is running at 3% a year. But that number doesn't include food and energy, the things you actually buy every week. It also uses something called hedonic adjustment, which means if the price of steak goes up but you buy chicken instead, they count that as no inflation because you're still buying protein. Never mind that you can't afford steak anymore. Real inflation, the kind you feel in your wallet, has been running much higher. In the last 4 years, grocery prices are up about 25%. Electricity is up 18%. Car insurance is up about 26%. Rent is up about 30% in many cities. But your raise last year was probably around 3%. If you got one at all, you're losing ground every single year, and that good job of yours isn't keeping up. Here's what nobody tells you when you're 22 and graduating college, full of hope about your career. The system is designed to extract wealth from labor and transfer it to capital. What does that mean in plain English? You make money by working, by trading your time and effort for a paycheck. You're taxed heavily and your purchasing power erodes. If you make money by owning things, by having capital that generates returns, you're taxed less and your wealth compounds. Let me give you a concrete example. You work hard all year and make $60,000. You pay about 25% of that in various taxes. You're left with $45,000. Now imagine someone who owns rental properties and stocks and makes $60,000 in capital gains and dividends. Long-term capital gains are taxed at 15% for most people. They keep $51,000. They did 0 hours of work. You did 2,000 hours. They keep more money, but it gets better for them and worse for you. Your $60,000 in wages will buy you less next year. Because of inflation, their assets, the properties and stocks that generated that $60,000 will likely increase in value. So next year, they'll make more money from doing nothing and you'll make about the same from working your tail off. This is the hamster wheel. This is why your good job isn't building wealth. Your grandparents didn't need to understand any of this. They got hired at a factory or an office, stayed for 30 years, got a pension, bought a house that tripled in value, and retired comfortably. The system worked for them. It was designed to work for them. Post-World War II America built the largest middle class in human history by making it possible for regular working people to build wealth through labor. That system is gone. It was systematically dismantled starting in the 1980s. Pensions were replaced with 401ks, shifting the risk from employers to employees. Unions were busted, removing workers' collective bargaining power. Tax rates on high earners and corporations were slashed. Financial deregulation allowed wealth to consolidate at the top. And housing became an investment vehicle instead of a basic need, pricing out regular buyers. You're not failing. The system is working exactly as it was redesigned to work. It's working for people who own capital. It's not working for people who sell their labor. And here's the most frustrating part. Everyone keeps giving you the same tired advice. Budget better. Cut out lattes. Get a side hustle. Stop eating avocado toast. As if the problem is your morning coffee and not the fact that housing costs have increased 800% while wages increased 60% over the same time period. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's 34, has a bachelor's degree, works as a project manager making $75,000 a year. That's well above the national average. She's doing better than most people. She has $60,000 in student loans at 6% interest. Her monthly payment is $660. She's been paying it for 12 years and still owes $58,000 because of interest. She rents a one-bedroom apartment for $1,900 a month because she can't save enough for a down payment while paying her student loans and living expenses. She contributes 6% to her 401k to get the company match. She drives a used car that's paid off. She doesn't take vacations. She brings lunch to work. She does everything right. She has about $4,000 in savings, one medical emergency, one car breakdown, one unexpected expense, and she's wiped out. This is what a good job looks like in 2025. Or take Marcus. He's 47, works in manufacturing, makes $62,000 a year. He's been with the same company for 19 years. He bought his house in 2006, right before the crash, for $280,000. It's now worth $260,000. He's underwater on his mortgage. He has about $90,000 in his 401k. He's paying off credit card debt from when he was laid off for 6 months. During COVID, his son wants to go to college. In-state tuition is $14,000 a year plus room and board. Marcus makes too much for financial aid but not enough to actually pay for it. He's looking at taking out Parent Plus loans at 7% interest to give his kid the opportunities he was told a college degree provides. The same opportunities that haven't exactly panned out for him. These aren't rare cases. This is normal. This is what good jobs produce now. Not wealth. Not security. Just the ability to keep your head above water. If nothing goes wrong. And something always goes wrong. The previous generation built wealth through home equity. They bought a house for $100,000, paid it off over 30 years, and it was worth $400,000 when they retired. That's $300,000 in wealth, just from living somewhere. You're paying $2,000 a month in rent, which is $24,000 a year, which is $720,000 over 30 years, and you own nothing at the end. Your landlord builds equity. You build nothing. The previous generation had pensions that paid them a guaranteed income for life. You have a 401k that might have enough money if you contribute for 40 years, and the market doesn't crash right before you retire. And you don't have any major expenses, and you live exactly as long as the actuarial tables predict. That's a lot of ifs. The previous generation graduated college with little to no debt. You graduated with an average of $30,000 in loans, which at current interest rates will cost you about $40,000 to pay off. That's $40,000 you're not investing, not saving, not using as a down payment. And you needed that degree to get the good job that isn't building you wealth. Here's what changed. Education became a profit center instead of a public good. Housing became an investment commodity instead of shelter. Healthcare became a market instead of a right. Jobs became gigs instead of careers. Pensions became 401ks. Stability became flexibility, which is just a nice word for precarity. And somehow, through all of this, we're still told that if we just work hard enough, we'll be fine. You won't. Not under these conditions. Hard work is necessary but not sufficient. The game is rigged, and your good job is a consolation prize that keeps you just comfortable enough not to revolt but not comfortable enough to actually build generational wealth. The median household income in America is about $75,000. The median home price is about $400,000. That ratio, home price to income, is over 5. Historically, a healthy ratio is about 3. We're almost double what's sustainable. The median retirement account balance for people in their 50s is about $60,000. The recommended amount to retire comfortably at 65 is about $1.5 million. We're not even close. These aren't individual failures. This is systemic. This is what happens when wages stagnate for 50 years while productivity soars. This is what happens when healthcare costs increase 10 times faster than wages. This is what happens when education becomes a debt trap. This is what happens when housing becomes financialized. This is what happens when corporations prioritize shareholder value over employee welfare. Your good job isn't building wealth because it was never designed to not anymore. It's designed to extract maximum productivity from you while compensating you just enough to keep you showing up. You're not a valued team member building something together. You're a cost center to be minimized. And the moment technology can replace you, or someone overseas can do your job cheaper, you're gone. I'm not saying this to depress you. I'm saying this because you need to know it's not your fault. You did everything you were told to do and the system failed you. Understanding that is the first step. You can't fix a problem you don't understand. You can't navigate a game when you don't know the rules changed. The good news, if there is any, is that you're not alone. Millions of people are in this exact situation, wondering why they're working so hard and getting nowhere. The awareness is spreading. People are starting to ask the right questions. Why do we accept that working full-time doesn't guarantee housing? Why do we accept that? Why do we accept that healthcare can bankrupt you? Why do we accept that education requires decades of debt? Why do we accept that retirement is a luxury most people can't afford? These aren't natural laws. These are choices, policy choices, economic choices, choices made by people who benefit from the current system. And choices can be changed. But first, you have to stop blaming yourself. Stop thinking you're bad with money or not working, hard enough or not smart enough. You're stuck in a system that's working against you, and your good job is just good enough to keep you stuck. Understanding this won't immediately fix your bank account, but it will fix your perspective. And perspective is power. You'll stop chasing the carrot on the stick. You'll stop believing the lie that one more promotion, one more degree, one more sacrifice will finally get you there. You'll see the game for what it is. And once you see it, you can decide how you want to play it, or if you want to play it at all. Your good job isn't building wealth anymore because the relationship between labor and prosperity was severed decades ago. The fruits of your labor are being harvested by someone else. And until we collectively decide that's unacceptable, nothing will change. But it starts with you understanding what's really happening, not blaming yourself, not buying into the mythology of meritocracy, but seeing clearly, thinking critically, and recognizing that you're not failing the system. The system is failing you.